Exclusive contract with Feilu Novel Network novel. Anti-Japanese War. Red Police Base. I am a great power. Young Jiang Fan carried the Red Police Base through 1933. At the outbreak of the Great Wall War of Resistance against Japan, the protagonist crazily explodes troops, armed with the most advanced Red Police equipment and the strongest Red Police army, directly crushing the opponent. T.34 tank. No, it's weak. Look at the steel torrent of my Guardian's main tank. P.51 Mustang. Too outdated. My MiG jet fighter is the master of the sky. Yamato. How should you respond when I take out a nuclear-powered supercarrier? General-class battleships, Century strategic bombers, mind controllers, teleporters as revolutionary weapons emerge in this era. The end of the Japanese aggressors has already arrived. Jiang Fan will also fulfill his promises to come to this time and space. Nuclear explosion islands, horses trampling on the East Sea, slaughtering bears and eagles suddenly looking back. I turned out to be a great power myself, the largest and strongest. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Welcome Commander home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I've traveled. What is this? Jiang Fan, a young man of the 21st century, woke up and suddenly found himself lying on a grassland in the wilderness. The most crucial thing is that there is still a creepy and SCI.fi tracked vehicle in front of him at this moment. And this car is incredibly large, as tall as 6 or 7 floors. Why does it always feel a bit familiar to me when I look at it? Jiang Fan rubbed his chin and looked at the strange car in front of him, pondering for a moment. At that moment, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Red Alert Base Number 2023 welcomes the commander back home. The surrounding environment of the base is safe. Will it be deployed in place? After hearing this voice, Jiang Fan's eyes widened in disbelief. He finally understood why he felt a bit familiar now. Isn't this the model he picked up on the roadside before? It was because it looked very similar to the Soviet Red Alert base car that I picked it up. But who knew this thing was actually a real Red Alert base vehicle? It must be the one who caused it to travel on its own. But time travel plus golden fingers. Suddenly, Jiang Fan's inner turmoil began to surge. Exhibition. Unfold. Under his shocked gaze, the base car in front of him began to change like a Transformers. In less than a minute, a massive base was presented before him. The base is at least a few football fields in size. With sharp edges, streamlined configuration, and ASCI.fi appearance, it is much more imposing than the base car in the game. Pwai. A door slowly opens. Jiang Fan, who had come to his senses, couldn't help but walk in. Buzz. At this moment, the entire base seemed to have come to life, with bright lights. At this point, the map of the entire base also appeared in Jiang Fan's mind. Welcome the commander back home. The sound of the base's intelligent system is ringing again. Where am I now? Where did you send me? It is now March 2nd, 1933, during the Republic of China period. It is located in Erdaegu, northwest of Qingda, 10 kilometers away from Qingda city. In 1933, the Republic of China. After hearing these words, Jiang Fan widened his eyes in astonishment. If he remembers well, it is currently during the Great Wall War of Resistance against Japan. After the September 18 incident, the Japanese aggressors did not stop their aggression. But instead, they continue to launch attacks on areas such as Rihe and Chahar, and even intend to annex North China. The brutal Great Wall War of Resistance broke out. In order to preserve his strength, the governor of Rihe province, Tang Yulin, directly withdrew from Rihe and handed over this land to others. On March 4, 1933, a Japanese cavalry, with only a few hundred soldiers, effortlessly occupied Qingda. That is to say, there are still 2 days left. In 2 days, the little devils will occupy Qingda, and they must not be allowed to succeed. As a young man who grew up under the red flag, I have never forgotten my hatred towards the little devils. The crimes they have committed, both before and in the future, are unforgivable. Since the base brought him to this era, that debt must be recovered from the little devil no matter what. Open the base interface. There is not much time left for him now, we must hurry up and prepare. A map of 10 kilometers around was clearly presented to him. This is also the current construction scope of the base. Without a chance to take a closer look, Jiang Fan instinctively began to strike 3 axes. Building power plants. Building mining sites. Building barracks. At this point, the number in the upper right corner jumps. He only then noticed. Is this funding? Is there only 6,600 left? This is the initial 10,000 yuan funding for the base, and the commander needs to build mining vehicles as soon as possible to supplement the base's funds. Mining is also the only source of base funds. As a gaming veteran, he certainly understands what this means. Economy is the core of the Red Police base. Money has nothing to offer. Taking advantage of the gap in the construction, Jiang Fan began to wander inside the base. The base is not only the core building of the Red Alert, but also Jiang Fan's home. Apart from the command hall, there are all kinds of functional areas available. 6 hours later, 3 buildings were completed simultaneously. Moreover, the mining site even included a mining vehicle as a bonus. Commander, this is a map of the surrounding mineral resources. Looking at the map on the screen, Jiang Fan was somewhat surprised. Surprisingly, there are so many mines. I don't blame him for his expression. At this moment, there are dense resources on the map. There are gold mines, coal mines, iron mines, copper mines, tin mines, tungsten mines, aluminum mines. There are various types of ores. However, the scale is not very large. With the current mining efficiency of the first-level mining vehicle, it can provide approximately 3,000 funds per day. And there is no upper limit on the mining vehicles at the base, money is the upper limit. From the resource map, at least he doesn't have to worry about funding in the short term. But 1,000 mining vehicles. Let's save up some funds first. Given the current situation, recruiting troops first is the most secure. Chapter 2. The Attack of the Kwantung Army. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. There are not many units currently unlocked in the barracks, and they are not familiar to him either. Police dogs, 50, conscripts, 50, elite soldiers, 100, special forces, 1,000. The above are the units that have been unlocked now. In the Red Alert base, each unit has its own role. The greatest function of police dogs is to identify spies and act as the eyes of the base. Recruiting soldiers is equivalent to new recruits who have undergone basic training. So the price is also the cheapest, belonging to the cannon fodder of the Red Police Corps. And elite soldiers are soldiers who have undergone all formal training subjects. This includes the 3 major military branches of sea, land, and air. Special forces are basically like kings of war, and they are also the most expensive types of troops. As for the specific combat effectiveness, he is also unclear. But since we are facing the Little Devils, although the weapons of the Little Devils are second-rate, their combat effectiveness cannot be underestimated. So if you want to deal with the Little Devils, conscription is definitely not possible. Recruit a reinforced infantry platoon first, it's enough to deal with cavalry from over 100 Little Devils. The barracks have a very convenient place to recruit soldiers. Just determine the organization module, and the base will automatically recruit the corresponding soldiers. In modern times and space, as Jiang Fan, who had studied at the Shijiazhuang Army Officer Academy, staffing is not a problem. At the current recruitment speed of a single barracks, around 30 people can be recruited in a single day. If you want to handle this reinforced arrangement, it will be at least until early tomorrow morning. He just needs to wait now. On the morning of the 4th. When Jiang Fan stepped out of the base vehicle, I found a row of fully armed soldiers standing in front of the base vehicle. They were all wearing camouflage combat uniforms, steel helmets, and equipped with very luxurious weapons, for the little devils. Infantry are equipped with the M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle, Browning light machine gun, and Thompson submachine gun as standard. A uniform beauty weapon. Report to Commander. The platoon leader Xie Ning is reporting to you that there should be 58 people in the first row, but there are actually 58 people. Just as Jiang Fan was stunned, an officer with the rank of second lieutenant stood in front of him, his face serious. A row of 3 infantry squads with 12 soldiers. Equipped with 7 M1 Garand semi-automatic rifles, for Thompson submachine guns, and 1 Browning light machine gun. In addition to 3 infantry squads, there is also 1 firepower squadron under its jurisdiction. This firepower squad is equipped with 2 60mm mortars and 1 heavy machine gun. In terms of this firepower configuration, coupled with their combat effectiveness, defeating a small Japanese cavalry of around 100 people is not a problem. He hasn't been idle for the past 2 days waiting for soldiers to recruit. In addition to adding another mining vehicle to the base, we also clarified the current situation in Qingda. Just 3 days ago, Tang Yulin, who had seen the wrong wind direction, withdrew from Qingda with the last infantry regiment. The current Qingda city has no garrison force at all. And now Qingda has become a mess. Most of the people who want to run have already run, while the rest feel indifferent. Xie Ning, immediately lead a row of followers to set up an ambush in the northeast direction of Xiaowangswang in Qingda. Xiaowangswang is a necessary route from Pinquan to Qingda. Since the little devil is a cavalry, he will definitely take this road. As for the base, it comes with a cracked generator that cannot be detected by the outside world. Xiaowangswang is located halfway up the mountain, with the official road leading to Qingda below. This is also the reason why Jiang Fan set up the ambush position here. The scorching sun shone in the sky, shining brightly on the pristine white, appearing exceptionally dazzling. Bang, bang, bang. On the main road from Pinquan to Qingda, a pair of Dongyang horses galloped over. Snow splattered everywhere under the hooves of horses on the road. A Japanese soldier dressed in Guangdong army attire buried his head and rode forward. They are from the 2nd Cavalry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Brigade, with a total of 128 people. The leader is Squadron Leader Kawahara Saburo. Seeing the smoke from the stove halfway up the mountain ahead, an officer rode up to his side. Squadron Leader, the people's village in front is located halfway up the mountain. If we ambush here, we can hardly fight back. Mitsuro Kawahara looked at him and said with disdain, the people have been scared out of their wits by the Imperial Army. Even Tang Yulin has run away. The current military strength in Qingda is empty. If we can win it, we will become heroes. Everyone, accelerate forward. The smooth progress of the Northeast War has made them look down upon others. The non-resistance policy further fueled their arrogance. It's not surprising that Mitsuro Kawahara is so disdainful. Commander, they are accelerating forward. Xie Ning couldn't help but exclaim with great joy upon seeing this scene. Jiang Fan snorted coldly. Sure enough, he still looks down on others and prepares everyone for battle. This battle does not require captives, nor does it require living beings. Everyone remembers to me that only the dead Japanese invaders are good little devils. In the war against Japan, there is no such thing as capture. After hearing these words, Xie Ning nodded heavily. Yes, Commander, we will remember. Bang, bang, bang. After a cavalry entered the encirclement, Jiang Fan roared angrily, fire. Chapter 3 Ambush Warfare. Complete annihilation of Guangdong Army Cavalry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bomb. Bomb. There were two loud noises in front and behind the road, and the soil and gravel rushed up several tens of meters into the air under the huge explosion. These two explosions also directly cut off the front and back routes of this Kwantung Army cavalry. At the same time, all the soldiers in the row also opened fire. Bang bang. On the mortar position, mortar shells roared out. The bullets on the battlefield were even more densely packed, showcasing their powerful firepower. The slightly disoriented Kwantung Army cavalry below were swept down by more than 10 people before they could react. The sound of gunfire, screams, hoarse neighs, and explosions mixed together. It was an ambush and a counterattack by people. Everyone gave up their horses and fought back. Kawahara Mitsuro hid behind the corpse of the horse and saw this scene, his eyes splitting, and he shouted loudly. These people are truly the elite cavalry of the Kwantung Army. After the initial panic, they quickly launched a counterattack. One by one, without any brainless charge. But instead, they searched for cover and used exquisite marksmanship to shoot. This is completely different from what Jiang Fan imagined. Dog Days Divine Drama, grenades, blow them up for me. One by one, the big tumors made by Maida were thrown towards the heads of the little devils, which was the advantage of being superior. The biggest advantage of German-made large tumors, also known as wooden handle grenades, is their great power. Bomb. 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 A dense explosion exploded in the crowd. Directly blow up this group of Kwantung Army cavalry and turn them upside down. The firepower advantage is ultimately not something that the little devils can compensate for with their marksmanship, let alone the elite soldiers of the Red Alert. The little devils suppressed by dense bullets couldn't even lift their heads. AM-1 Garland semi-automatic rifle can suppress several small devils. At this time, the heavy machine gun demonstrated a huge advantage. The 12.7 mm caliber bullets fired by M2HB directly penetrated the bunker and killed the little devils hiding behind. Kill me. The little devil finally couldn't bear such oppression and chose to launch a desperate charge of death. Because they knew that they had been defeated in this battle. Half an hour later, the fierce battle came to an end with the sound of gunfire stopping. They successfully completed the mission and annihilated 128 Kwantung Army cavalry. However, I have also paid a considerable price myself. More than 20 people were injured or killed. Clean up the battlefield and occupy Qingda. At this moment, the gate of Qingda is wide open and chaotic. Many houses in the city even burst into flames. With Tang Yulin's withdrawal, the local ruffians and social gangs in the city are no longer suppressed. So a riot of burning, killing, and looting began. No wonder the 128 cavalry of the Little Devils were able to take the high-walled city of Qingda without bloodshed. Boss Wu, big things are not good, big things are not good. In the largest smoke and mist hall in Qingda, a middle-aged man in a big coat quickly walked into a study. What's wrong? Tang Yulin has run away, and the Imperial Army is also on the way. What else can happen? Has Tang Yulin returned? The speaker is Wu Qianshan, the largest wealthy businessman in Qingda and the largest opium agent in the entire Rihe region. At the same time, he also has a close relationship with Manchuria Railway. And the reason why the city is so chaotic and the city gates are wide open is all because of him. No, neither of them. Dongqing district has been occupied, but it's not a foreigner, but a guy who emerged from somewhere unknown. Wu Qianshan suddenly stood up. What? Where's the Imperial Army? Where's their cavalry? Why haven't they come yet? The middle-aged man sighed and said, the contact person I sent has received news that the Imperial cavalry has been ambushed in Xiaowangswang and has been completely destroyed. How could this be possible? Wu Qianshan's eyes were full of disbelief. The Japanese army is invincible in the 3 northeastern provinces. Even the most elite Fengtian army is not their opponent. This is what he saw with his own eyes and cannot be wrong. However, this person doesn't have many soldiers. I have already counted them, and the people he brought are only around 30. Perhaps we can eliminate him for the Imperial Army and welcome the large army into the city. In this way, we can still make a big contribution. Upon hearing this, Wu Qianshan's pupils flickered and he nodded thoughtfully, saying, "Okay, now it's time for us to take action. Immediately gather the brothers, take action in the early morning, and take down this ignorant thing Dongqing district." "Commander, why didn't you just enter the city and take over the governor's office? You just took over the east gate." Xian Ning asked in confusion. Jiang Fan chuckled lightly and said, "Do you really think that Qingda can be so easily occupied? Or do you think this city gate is open for us? Prepare your brothers for battle, there may be another fierce battle in the early morning." Jiang Fan hasn't been sitting and waiting these days. He naturally had already inquired about the situation in Qingda. In history, someone opened the city gate to welcome the Japanese invaders' 128 cavalry into the city. After inquiring about the situation, there's no need to guess who it is. Now that he has occupied the eastern city and the troops are small, how could they possibly sit still? Taking advantage of this opportunity, they were annihilated in one fell swoop. Get rid of this group of traitors who sell their country for glory. But I really don't have enough troops on hand now. The recruitment time for elite soldiers is not only longer, but also more expensive. Urgent matters require authority. So today, what the barracks are recruiting is not elite soldiers, but conscripts. Although they are all new recruits, they have at least undergone basic training. With the support of advanced weapons and equipment, the combat effectiveness will not be too weak. And today, the base has added another mining vehicle, which can earn 6,000 funds per day. In addition, 1,000 funds were spent to build a logistics center. This is one of the most core buildings of the Red Alert base. Not only can we provide him with all the weapons and equipment before 1937. It can also provide all types of minerals, industrial equipment, food, and so on. With the logistics center, he can also arm his soldiers well. Since the troops are insufficient, we will use the most advanced weapons to make up for this deficiency. Chapter 4. Using the most luxury and advanced equipment. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Cannons, tanks, airplanes. These were definitely not present before the construction of armored factories and air bases. Heavy weapons cannot be equipped in the short term, at least for a week. But there is no problem with light weapons after the construction of the logistics center. The Red Police Corps needs to use the best equipment, armed from head to toe to teeth. Rifle. M1 Garland Semi-Automatic Rifle, 20 funds, Machine Gun. MG-34 General Purpose Machine Gun, 40 funds, Submachine Gun. Somi Submachine Gun, 25 funds, Pistol. Colt. 45 High Power Pistol, 10 funds, Heavy Machine Gun. M2 HB Large Caliber Heavy Machine Gun, 80 funds. These weapons are the standard equipment for every soldier in the future Red Police Corps. Although the cost of arming is high, it can greatly reduce casualties. Like the newly recruited second row today, it is also a reinforced row similar to the first row, with just 60 people. This second row is Jiang Fan's backup prepared for the first battle in the early morning. At night, Qingda has begun to regain calmness. But it hides the surging undercurrent. On the street in front of Yinwu Pavilion, a person wearing a black coat stood neatly. There are over 300 people in total. They all held Type 38 rifles, made in Hanyang, and even a small number of Type 11 light machine guns. Rich businessman Wu Qianshan stood in front of them expressionless. "Let's go, slaughter them for me, and glory and wealth are right in front of us. Let's go." Hundreds of people roared in awe. Like a torrent rushing towards Dongqing district. "Commander, the police dog has received news that they have indeed arrived. The number of people is about 300, each with a gun. Jiang Fan's eyes flickered with a cold light upon hearing this and said, then let's face it and kill all these traitors and traitors. What he hates the most is the traitor, even more detestable than the Japanese. There is a defensive fortification built with sandbags at the intersection of the street. There are 3 classes of soldiers defending here. On both sides of the street, the high ground is defended by another squad of soldiers. The second row is a room lurking in the street. They will kill at critical moments and give them a fatal blow. Da-da-da. A dense sound of footsteps could be heard in the dark streets of the night. It was the black-clothed man who came from multiple directions. Bang bang bang. On the city tower, 3 strong searchlights were turned on, and the entire area suddenly lit up like daylight. The black-clothed man who was exposed to strong light almost blinded his eyes. And they, exposed to light, are the best targets. Strike. Xie Ning let out a roar and picked up a Suomi submachine gun, heading straight towards her. With his command, rifles and machine guns were fired together. Bullets mixed with tracer bullets formed chains of fire in the air. Dense bullets rained down on them like raindrops. The black-clad men rushing forward were shot and fell to the ground before they could react, starting to fall in patches. The 2 MG-34 general-purpose machine guns at the high points on both sides began firing at lightning speed. The maximum firing rate of this machine gun can reach 900 rounds per minute. When it rings, it is also a nightmare for all enemies. Kill. Under the sudden attack, the black-clothed man was already in chaos. They are just a mob. At this moment, one door after another opened in the surrounding houses. The second-row soldiers holding rifles and submachine guns shot out. Directly surround these hundreds of people. A fierce massacre has begun. Bullets and grenades were constantly coming from the front, back, left, right, and overhead. They have nowhere to hide, nowhere to hide. This is a one-sided battle. The massacre did not last long either. The first row is left to clean the battlefield, while the second row immediately blocks all city gates and entrances and exits, allowing no one to enter or exit. He could never let go of the traitors led by Wu Qianshan. They must have been hiding now. What he needs to do is seal the city gate and find them later. Wu Qianshan is indeed hiding in an unknown small courtyard now. He spoke in a somewhat panicked tone and said, quickly. Send a telegram to Jun Shaoquan and tell him about the situation in Qingda. The Koizumi Jun in his mouth is the senior staff officer of the Japanese Mixed 14th Brigade. The Japanese Mixed 14th Brigade has 4 infantry battalions, 1 wild artillery battalion, and 1 cavalry squadron, with a total force of over 5,300 people. He is also one of the main forces responsible for the operation in the southern part of the Heat province. Qingda is exactly the combat direction they are responsible for. Nanny Qingda has been occupied by armed forces who do not know where they come from. Hi, Your Excellency, Brigade Commander, please give me a battalion of troops. I will definitely help you regain Qingda and make amends. Brigade Commander Hattori Bingjiro let out a cold snort. Okay, I'll give you another artillery squadron. If you can't win Qingda, you can cut yourself to thank His Majesty the Emperor. Hi. Mr. Koizumi's face changed and he nodded solemnly. Koizumi is still very confident in winning Qingda. On the battlefield in northeast China, their large army can drive tens of thousands of people away. Winning Qingda with less than 200 defenders, a battalion and a field artillery squadron is already enough. In the direction of Yangchuan, a large Japanese army began to rush towards Qingda. Chapter 5. Starting with violent soldiers, blocking the Japanese Army Brigade. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xie Ning, have you caught anyone? After Xie Ning hurriedly came to his door, Jiang Fan couldn't help but ask. Commander, I have 2 things to report to you. The person has been caught, and I also found the damaged radio station on the spot. It was a telegram sent to the Japanese army in Yangchuan. Our reconnaissance troops sent to Yangchuan direction also called and found the trail of a large Japanese army. Upon hearing this, Jiang Fan's eyebrows couldn't help but furrow. It seems that there is no stop in the end, otherwise at least we can give him a few more days to procrastinate. However, the intelligence system of the Little Devils is developed and has a deep penetration into China. Even without this telegram, we cannot delay for 2 days. What else? Let's just say it in one breath. There was a person at the entrance who wanted to see you before. He is a well-known high school teacher in the local area, and I heard he came from Baoding Military Academy. It's interesting to come out of Baoding Military Academy, let him in. Xian Ning paused for a moment to say something. He said the Japanese army was about to attack, and if we were still in Qingda, he would have come to see him. After that, he left again. It's really strange. Jiang Fan chuckled lightly and said, since that's the case, let's deal with the Little Devils in this brigade first. Xian Ning, I have a task assigned to you now. Xian Ning stood at attention and raised his head, saying, Commander, please give orders. Xian Ning will definitely complete the task. You led a team to attack the Japanese army, buying us time. Remember the essence of guerrilla tactics. Xian Ning nodded heavily and said, yes, Commander. When the enemy advances, we retreat, when the enemy retreats, we advance, when the enemy stays, we disturb, when the enemy is tired, we fight. Okay, then let's go. It depends on how much time you can buy. He just built another mining vehicle. The base receives up to 9,000 funds every day. To deal with the Little Devils in this brigade, at least 1 battalion of troops is needed. To establish a battalion, at least 30,000 or more funds are needed. So this resistance battle is very important. However, with the strength of Xian Ning and his team, it should be no problem to strive for more than 3 days. Pingquan is approximately 80 kilometers away from Qingda. It takes about 2 days to march at a normal speed. That is to say, Xian Ning only needs to block the Japanese army for more than a day. However, it may also come at a very painful cost. But this is war. The first day passed smoothly, and Jiang Fan was also accumulating troops step by step. Xian Ning also arrived at the first interception point. Hedong village at the fastest speed. The road from Pingquan to Qingda is all rugged mountain roads. Xian Ning is also well aware that it is not realistic to directly block a Japanese army brigade with a platoon of troops. So he had no intention of engaging in direct combat at all. He divided a row into 3, on a class basis. Conduct a raid operation against the Japanese army. At this moment, he is leading an ambush on an unnamed mountain. Below the mountain, a large group of Japanese troops are advancing rapidly. Even though everyone was panting, the team remained neat. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, a series of explosions occurred in the team. Just as the explosion sounded, black shadows fell from the sky on the mountaintop. Bomb. 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 A dense explosion struck again. It was Xian Ning's chain mine formation combined with a rain of grenades. Even the elite Japanese troops were a bit confused by this sudden attack. The whole team is slightly chaotic. But they also quickly reacted. Enemy attack, on the right hill, machine gun suppression, mortar and grenade launchers indiscriminately strike, immediately organized troops to attack. Withdraw. Without firing a single shot, Xian Ning decisively ran away with a group. This Japanese army is still very tricky. Surprisingly, it reacted so quickly. Once entangled by them, I'm afraid I can't even leave if I want to. His task is to hold back the Little Devils, not to obstruct them. Bagaya Road. When the 2 Japanese teams attacked the mountain, they found it empty. The directly angry Koizumi staff member cursed his mother for a while. Keep moving forward. Just after the attack, the Japanese army appeared very cautious and even sent minesweepers to walk at the front of the team. The forward speed has greatly slowed down. And Xie Ning's desired goal has also been achieved. Along the way, he and the other two classes did not give up any opportunity to attack the Japanese army. The two PM.37 82mm guns brought out by this artillery squad also came in handy. A total weight of 56 kilograms plus a maximum range of 3 kilometers. We can bombard the Japanese army from a distance and run away after a round of fighting. The Japanese army, which was overwhelmed by the disturbance, also began to allocate some troops to encircle and suppress the troops that were attacking them. This also made it difficult for Xie Ning and his team to succeed, and they also lost more than 10 soldiers. Go to Wugo town, where there is an old cow river. The river has thawed and is very fast. As long as the upstream and downstream bridges and ships are destroyed, and a blocking position is set up across the river, it can hold them for at least half a day. But in that case, we may not be able to go back. Are you afraid? Xie Ning looked at the soldiers surrounding him and asked. Not afraid, as long as we can buy time for the commander, we are not afraid of death. Yes, we are not afraid of death. On the third day, Xie Ning, you must hold on. Over a period of 2 days, approximately 20,000 funds were spent. In the case of simultaneous recruitment in 3 barracks. He has recruited nearly 400 soldiers. Just after today, he will have a fully staffed infantry battalion. However, having people alone is not enough. We also need equipment. Chapter 6. Let the little devil see our cannon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A battalion has 3 infantry companies, 1 firepower support company, and 1 artillery company, plus the battalion headquarters. The total strength of the entire battalion is about 700 people. Due to the temporary shortage of troops, the infantry company has not established a reinforced platoon, so 500 people are sufficient. The fire support company is mainly equipped with 8 82mm mortars, 2 M2 HB large caliber heavy machine guns, and 6 MG 34 general-purpose machine guns. The artillery company is a temporary establishment. I want to use the organizational strength of an infantry battalion to resist the small devils with a battalion-level force. So heavy artillery is indispensable. Having heavy artillery will give him a greater advantage on the battlefield. So when the armor factory is established, he immediately began to form this artillery company. As for the choice of artillery, he also made a decision. Due to limited funds at present, he chose 105mm in caliber selection. On the domestic battlefield, 105mm caliber artillery can already be considered heavy artillery. And even the little devils don't have a large number of guns equipped. According to the investigation conducted by Xie Ning and his team, the little devils in this brigade carry a small number of cannons, and their calibers are all very small. It's just about being able to show off on the domestic battlefield. And the LE-FH-18 105mm howitzer he chose was enough to form a strong firepower suppression against the Japanese army. This artillery is a carefully crafted work by Krupp and is one of the best artillery pieces of the same caliber. Long range and lightweight. Moreover, it has the characteristics of both howitzers and cannons, and can also be used as an anti-tank gun. The entire artillery weighs 1.9 tons, with a maximum firing rate of 7 rounds per minute and a maximum range of 12 kilometers. Only 8 people are needed to control this artillery. The artillery company established by Jiang Fan also belongs to the strengthened artillery company. There are 3 artillery platoons in the entire company, each equipped with 3 Krupp 105mm howitzers, totaling 9. In terms of weapons and equipment, he has achieved the utmost luxury. The next thing to do is to fight. Qingda must be defended no matter what. When the artillery company returned to its position, a radio also flew towards Xie Ning, more than 20 kilometers away. At this moment, Xie Ning and others are engaged in a bloody battle with the Japanese infantry battalion on the position in Wugo town. The Japanese army has an advantage in artillery and military strength. The battle was extremely brutal. At present, there are less than 20 people left on the battlefield. Captain, the commander is calling, asking us to break through immediately. The receiving troops are already on their way. Xie Ning touched the blood on her face and shouted, "Withdraw." This command came very timely. If it's any later, Xie Ning and others will have to explain it here. Because two Japanese teams had already crossed the Laonyo River upstream and attacked from the flank of Xie Ning and others. Ba Jie, keep moving forward, no matter what, we must take Qingda. At this moment, General Koizumi has also put aside his previous arrogance. He found that this army was different from what they had encountered before. They are well equipped, and their combat effectiveness and fighting spirit are not weaker than theirs. Fortunately, they have fewer troops. It seems that this is a small elite force organized by people. It cannot change the outcome of the battlefield. At night, Xie Ning and others finally returned to Qingda. They fought for the third day's time. But it paid an extremely heavy price. At night, troops, equipment, supplies, and other supplies from the Red Police base were continuously sent to Qingda. The defensive positions have also been completed. Jiang Fan did not set up the position inside Qingda city, but instead set it up in the Erdaegu area several kilometers outside the city. To defend Qingda, one needs to divide troops to guard the city gates in all directions. To guard Erdaegu, you only need to guard one place. As long as the little devils cross the Erdaegu, they cannot pose a threat to Qingda. On the morning of March 8, 1933, the brigade led by General Koizumi finally arrived near Qingda. At the same time, they also discovered the position set up by Jiang Fan in Erdaegu. I really don't know if he's stupid or smart. If we rely on the defense of Qingda city, it may be a bit tricky to eliminate them. He actually ran out on his own, so let's eliminate them here. Let our artillery level their position. It will take half an hour with the issuance of Koizumi's order. The Japanese army openly launched artillery on the spot without any concealment, completely disregarding Jiang Fan and the others. Because according to intelligence, Jiang Fan has limited military strength and no heavy weapons. So they didn't pay much attention to Jiang Fan at all. The number of artillery carried by the Japanese army this time was not small. The brigade itself has an infantry artillery squadron equipped with 4 Type 92 infantry guns. There is also a field artillery squadron, which has 4 Type 38 75mm field guns under its command. Bomb! 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 Infantry guns, field guns, and mortars all fired in unison. Dense shells flew towards the position halfway up the mountain. Suddenly, a dense explosion occurred in the position, with flying rocks and soil flying in the sky, and smoke columns rising from the explosion. Seeing the effect caused by the artillery, Staff Officer Koizumi wore a smile on his face, appearing very satisfied. Let the little devils also see our artillery and blow up their artillery positions for me. In the semi-buried command post, Jiang Fan put down his telescope and said to the nearby communicator. 9 Krupp 105mm howitzers equipped by the artillery company were ready to go, waiting for his orders. Chapter 7. Building a base card, BT.7 Fast Tank. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The artillery position is set up behind a hidden hill behind Erdaegu. 9 Krupp 105mm howitzers were neatly arranged in each pit. Company commander, the battalion headquarters has issued a telegram to immediately launch counter-artillery attacks on the Japanese army and destroy their artillery positions. Finally arrived, everyone started moving and gave me all the strength to take care of me. Today, I fired 100 rounds of each gun, and the unfinished gun crew washed the other gun crew's smelly socks. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the artillery position, accompanied by shells stuffed into the barrel. The first round of salvo has begun. Bang, bang, bang. The shells roared out in unison. The artillery positions were filled with smoke, and the dust covered the sky. The sound of artillery sounded like thunder. At this moment, the Japanese artillery positions are still vigorously shelling the Erdaegu position. They are still very satisfied with the damage caused by the shells. This kind of use of long-range artillery to bully people in is still very pleasant. What is that? When someone saw a black dot flying over their head, they asked their doubts. However, these black dots quickly answered his doubts. Bombs. Bang. 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 The shells began to fall densely and exploded in the artillery positions and surrounding areas. The power of the 105 mm shell is much greater than that of the 75 mm shell of Little Devil. The entire artillery position was engulfed in smoke columns, and the exploding flames almost enveloped the entire artillery position. Under this round of salvo, one of the 4 field guns was directly destroyed, and another was overturned to the ground. As they did not build any fortifications for the artillery, the casualties were not small. Nanny. This scene directly stunned General Koizumi and Captain Gizi. Aren't people a small army? Why do they have so many heavy artillery? Facing the question from the brigade leader, the current staff officer Koizumi is also in a daze. Zhang Hanqing, it must be Zhang Hanqing's troops who have arrived. Let the artillery be immediately transferred. You immediately organize your troops to launch an attack. The fighting capacity of people is very weak, and they can't stop the attack of the imperial warriors. Later, Koizumi made another decision. Immediately send a telegram to the brigade headquarters, stating that the main force of the Northeast Army has appeared in Qingda. The Japanese captain also thinks so. Even if there are tens of thousands of northeastern troops on the opposite side, they have fought before. Kill to give. Under the cover of infantry artillery, mortars, and grenade launchers, the Japanese army of Wu Yangyang launched a total attack on the Erdaegu position. There are 2 more Japanese teams attacking from the flank. Let the mortar shoot at the opponent's grenade launcher. The accuracy of Japanese grenade launchers is very high, which poses a great threat to the position. When the army stepped into the front of the position about 200 meters on that day, a series of explosions rang out one after another. The minefield buried in front of the position has begun to take effect. And this is also a signal of firing. Give me a call. Da-da-da. Bang. 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 Rifles, submachine guns, and machine guns were fired together. Suddenly, a dense number of bullets poured out from the position, and attacked the Japanese offensive forces like a rainstorm. The Japanese army in front fell like harvesting wheat. At this moment, the Japanese army in the rear continued to charge forward without fear. However, the Japanese army did not charge without thinking. The rear troops kept firing to cover the attack of the front troops. Their precise marksmanship still caused some casualties to a battalion. Let the 2nd and 3rd artillery companies provide cover for the shelling, while the 1st artillery company continues to stare at the enemy's artillery. The large-scale attack by the Japanese army still caused considerable pressure on the ground. When the artillery starts targeting the attacking Little Devils, one shell after another began to fall into the crowd. The MG-34 General-Purpose machine gun also played a great role at this time. The ultra-high firing rate, combined with the precise punches of the machine gunner, sweep a nearby Japanese soldier to the ground. Looking at the situation in front of the battlefield at this moment, Jiang Fan also felt relieved. The attack of the Little Devils, although sharp, could not pose a threat to the position. You stay here watching. After leaving Erdaegu, Jiang Fan headed straight towards the base. He needs to go back and prepare a trump card. A trump card that can eliminate this Japanese army battalion. In the lobby of the base, the interface of the armored factory comes into view. Tank patterns are clearly presented before our eyes. In the end, Jiang Fan's gaze fixed on a tank. BT.7 fast tank. For the current terrain of Chengda, tanks are not necessarily the bigger the better. Even if we give him Tiger and Leopard tanks now, they won't be able to drive here. On the contrary, the BT.7 is the best choice for him as a light tank. The BT.7 fast tank weighs a total of 14 tons in combat and can reach a maximum speed of 73 km per hour. Equipped with a 45mm caliber tank gun and two 7.62mm caliber machine guns. Although the armor is very weak, the thickest part is only 22mm. But for the little devils who lack anti-tank weapons and large caliber heavy machine guns, the BT.7 tank is the Iron King. The most crucial thing is that this thing is cheap. A car only requires 500 yuan. Today's 9,000 funds, apart from supplementing the losses of the troops, are all used to form tank units. Having tanks is the only way to easily eliminate this Japanese army. P.S. Looking for a wave of evaluation tickets, none of them have 55-55. Chapter 8. The fierce night attack and the cowardly cold of the Japanese army. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The scene that occurred at the Urdayagu position further confirmed Koizumi and others that the unit in front of them was the main force of the Northeast Army. On Bagaya Road, deploy all troops, strengthen the offensive, and break through their positions. Staff Officer Koizumi said angrily. However, Captain Gizi opposed it. This group of people have heavy artillery, and the firepower is extremely fierce. Our soldiers just increase unnecessary casualties when they charge. I suggest retreating a distance and waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Upon hearing this, General Koizumi scolded, "Bastard, if you encounter any resistance, retreat. Are you still a warrior of the Empire? The brigade leader told me that if I can't win Chengda, I will have to dig my stomach and commit suicide. But before committing suicide, I will definitely shoot you." As a confidant of the commander of the brigade, Jiro Hattori, he knew that this was not a joke. So Chengda will spare no effort to take it. But a battalion has already been armed to the teeth, it's not something their entire team can break through. The Japanese army in Wuyang launched a charge. A dense barrage of bullets and shells greeted them. It's impossible to enter the position 50 meters ahead. At this moment, the front of the position is already covered with Japanese corpses. However, their grenade throwers are indeed difficult to deal with. The launch is very covert, and the aiming point is also very high. So after this battle, Jiang Fan began equipping each squad with a Springfield sniper rifle. This full-power bolt-action rifle may have a slow firing rate, but it has a long range, high accuracy, and great power. Dealing with little devils with a grenade launcher can have a good effect. However, this requires a high level of marksmanship from soldiers. But for Red Alert soldiers, this is the most basic. After more than an hour, the Japanese offensive began to decline. At this point, Koizumi also realized something was wrong. Although the number of troops is small, their firepower is extremely fierce. Especially their machine guns have a very fast firing rate, and the artillery fire never stops. Left a very deep impression on them. If they want to capture this position in front of them, they may have to pay an exceptionally heavy price. How many casualties have occurred? Looking at the captain with red eyes returning, Koizumi asked with a cold face. More than 300 people. After hearing these words, even Koizumi took a deep breath of air. It has only been over an hour, and the casualties are so great. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Stop the attack, let the troops rest, and launch a night attack. Night can greatly weaken the opponent's firepower advantage. It can also provide good cover for their attack. As long as he rushes into the opponent's position, he has confidence in winning. The captain also breathed a sigh of relief and agreed with this approach. Faced with the retreating Japanese army, Xie Ning frowned. "Captain, the little devils have actually retreated. Are you planning to give up?" Xie Ning pondered and said, "Perhaps we are waiting for a better time. It seems like there will be a fierce battle tonight. Let the soldiers rest well, the Japanese army will definitely launch a night attack tonight." Xie Ning guessed very accurately. Around 3 a.m. the next day, the minefield in front of the position suddenly exploded. Suddenly, all the soldiers quickly entered a state of combat. High-lumen searchlights at high altitudes are turned on one by one. The mortar also fired illuminating shells into the sky. In an instant, the entire position was illuminated like daylight. Under the bright light, the Japanese army had nowhere to hide. At this moment, more than 200 meters ahead of the position, the figure of the Japanese army, Wu Yangyang, appeared. After seeing the failure of the night raid, they decisively launched a fierce charge. Kill to give. Bang, bang, bang. A series of landmines were stepped on, but these little devils still launched a charge without hesitation, with no fear in their eyes. Strike. Suddenly, guns and artillery burst out on the battlefield. The dense barrage of bullets fired from rifles, machine guns, and submachine guns instantly shrouded. The artillery in the rear also launched shelling under guidance, using barrage to block the Japanese army's subsequent attacks while cutting off their retreat. Suddenly, hundreds of shells rained down from the front of the position. The 105 mm howitzer had great power, leaving a blank space among the Japanese army. Under such fierce firepower, the Japanese army was like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, falling in patches. Retreat, retreat immediately. At this moment, Jun Koizumi is really scared. The other party's ferocity exceeded their imagination. If we continue to charge, the entire team may not be enough to fill in. After leaving hundreds of corpses in front of the position, the 25th Infantry Brigade began to retreat. Xie Ning did not pursue because it was no longer necessary. The first day of dawn is their death date. After retreating more than 10 kilometers, they finally stopped their pace. Even though the temperature is approaching below zero now, Jun Koizumi feels a cold sweat streaming down his head. Send power to the brigade immediately. We need reinforcements, and the main force of the Northeast Army is here. Report, the brigade headquarters has called back. Your Excellency, the brigade commander, has dispatched 2 battalions troops to reinforce. Not long after, they received a call back. This also made them all breathe a sigh of relief. And at this moment, in the Red Alert base, BT.7 fast tanks drove out from the armored factory one by one. Until around 5 a.m., the first tank company completed its formation. A total of 18 BT.7 fast tanks. Depart, cooperate with a battalion, and completely annihilate the Japanese 25th Infantry Brigade. This is also the strength of the Red Police Base. As long as equipment and personnel are produced, they can directly form organizational and combat capabilities. P.S. I wrote something else, but I still felt that the anti-Japanese war Red Police were writing with enthusiasm, so I picked it up and continued writing. Chapter 9. Tank Attack and Complete Annihilation of Japanese Brigade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the early morning, a thin mist shrouded the entire Qingda area. The Japanese 25th Infantry Brigade suffered heavy losses in personnel and equipment after yesterday's battle. Now the entire infantry battalion has only about 500 people left. Moreover, many Japanese soldiers were injured and their morale was extremely low. At this moment, they choose to camp in a valley. Early in the morning, Japanese soldiers gradually walked out of the tent and began to eat breakfast. After arriving in China, their meals were much better compared to before. Because they snatched it all the way. Just as they gathered to have breakfast, a whistling sound suddenly sounded in the sky. The veteran who has gone through the battlefield knows very well what the sound is. Suddenly, his face changed drastically. Artillery. The whistling sound was indeed artillery fire. 9 Krupp 105mm howitzers were guided to launch shelling on the Japanese valley camp. One shell landed precisely in the camp. Bomb! 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 The shells exploded in the camp, with explosive waves carrying fragments sweeping around. A bloody storm suddenly erupted in the camp. Gathering together and without cover, this group of Japanese soldiers is the best target. The smoke column lifted by the explosion is clearly visible even from a few kilometers away. We're starting, armored soldiers, let's go. Xie Ning, who was waiting several kilometers away, saw the movement coming from ahead and immediately waved his hand. BT.7 fast tanks started one by one, and white smoke emitted from the tailpipes. The tracks began to wriggle forward, leaving a deep rut on the ground. In no time, 18 BT.7 tanks began to storm towards the location of the Japanese camp. There is also a soldier standing on top of the tank who is hitchhiking. They all held Somi submachine guns one by one. Although tanks are strong, they also require infantry cover. At this moment, the Japanese army's valley camp is completely shrouded in explosions. A large number of 82mm mortar shells also fell. It was fired from the 82mm mortar position lurking nearby. It can only be said that the little devil is too proud and does not believe that Jiang Fan dares to take the initiative to attack. And they also paid a heavy price for it under the suppression of artillery fire. They can only hide in craters or shelters and dare not move. The soldiers who ran around have been buried under the shells. I don't know how long it has been. BT.7 fast tanks broke through the mist one by one, appearing before us like ferocious beasts. At this point, the shelling from the rear had already come to a halt. The Japanese army finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, their faces changed greatly when they saw the rushing tank swarm. The surviving staff officer Koizumi also widened his eyes, filled with fear and disbelief. He never expected to see so many heavy tanks in China, no matter what. Done. This idea unconsciously floated in his mind. Bomb. Da. Just as the Japanese army was stunned. The 45mm guns and DT machine guns of the tank began to play the music of death. A dense barrage of shells and bullets enveloped them. Suddenly, a bloody storm swept through the crowd. The soldiers following behind the tank also began to display fierce firepower. With the support of 72 rounds of ammunition drums, the Somi submachine gun's firepower was dense and sustained. Let the Japanese army not even have a chance to counterattack. After the tank cluster was crushed into the camp under the cover of infantry. The Japanese 25th Infantry Brigade has lost the opportunity to counterattack. What awaits them is endless slaughter. They began a desperate charge towards the tank cluster. One by one, their forehead fell under a dense barrage of bullets. This battle did not last long. About half an hour later, Jiang Fan received a battle report from Xie Ning. Okay, we have finally solved the current major problem. What he needs now is time. The longer the time, the stronger his strength will also be. After eliminating this infantry battalion, he can also develop with peace of mind. Of course, he also knows. At the latest, he will face even more fierce retaliation from the Japanese army in 3 days. But at that time his strength will be different from before. Because he is currently crazily producing mining vehicles. 5 vehicles exploded during a day of full production. The number of mining vehicles at the base has skyrocketed to 8. That means he can receive 24,000 yuan in funds in just 1 day. With sufficient funds, he can crazily start the development of his army. At the same time as the violent soldiers, he also began to increase the number of barracks and tank factories. As for the Air Force Base, due to the fact that the combat laboratory has not yet been unlocked, it is currently unable to produce fighter jets. However, if it is not possible to produce fighter jets, then there must be means of air defense. So it is very necessary to form an anti-aircraft artillery battalion. And the equipment was selected as a combination of 88mm anti-aircraft guns and 20-meter American anti-aircraft guns. The entire battalion is equipped with 12 88mm anti-aircraft guns and 18 20mm anti-aircraft guns. The Japanese military's current aircraft are either biplane or single-winged. These fighter jets are all very slow, and these two combination anti-aircraft guns are enough to handle it. The next day, when Jiang Fan woke up and saw the 30,000 yuan lying on the book, a smile appeared on his face. Little devils, it's time for you to see the strength of the Red Alert Army. P.S. This book does not work and is assumed to have no popularity. The author's previous old book was Anti-Japanese War. Young Marshal. No, please call me a great hero, and the results were also quite good, with 1,000,000 words written. As long as the data is good, there is no eunuch, so I also shamelessly ask for a wave of flowers and evaluation votes. If you give a reward, you can also come and see it. Chapter 10. Mixed 14th Brigade Arrival. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After receiving the news that the 25th Infantry Brigade had been completely annihilated, the Japanese Mixed 14th Brigade in Pingquan couldn't help but be shocked. The brigade commander, Major General Hattori Bingjiro, had an extremely unpleasant expression on his face. Ba Jie Yalu, it's really a group of foodies. It is a shame that more than 1,000 people in a large brigade were completely annihilated by the people of. You should know that even from September 18th to now, there has never been a situation where the entire brigade was annihilated. Now they may become famous throughout the entire Guangdong army by mixing into the 14th Brigade. But he didn't really come up with this name. Chengda, the people of. Muster all the troops to attack Chengda. Hattori Bingjiro gritted his teeth and said. In any case, this time we will completely wipe out this group of people and win Chengda, which will bring us no shame. But their gathering also takes time. After all, the troops of the mixed 14th Brigade are scattered in multiple locations. It took over a day just to gather troops. After the assembly is completed, Major General Jiro Hattori set off with 3 infantry battalions, 2 field artillery squadrons, and affiliated units. The total military strength is over 5,000 people. In addition, the Guangdong Army's land and air forces also dispatched dozens of fighter jets to support his operations. When the enemy in the direction of Pingquan moved, Jiang Fan received the news. I have to mention the police dog here. It is simply one of the best scouts. Who would have known that a local dog lying on the roadside would actually be the eye of a Red Alert base? These past few days have also allowed Jiang Fan to get a close understanding of the entire situation in Pingquan. During these 2 days, he has also been constantly abusing troops. And the number of mining vehicles has also increased to as many as 15. That means we can earn 45,000 yuan in funds every day. The number of barracks has also increased to 10, 3 armor factories, 4 logistics centers, and 12 power plants. These are the foundations of his current violent soldiers. Under the full recruitment of conscripts, 10 barracks are able to recruit 600 soldiers every day, which is equivalent to half the strength of a reinforced battalion. 600 conscripts with 30,000 yuan of funds and over 10,000 yuan of funds for various equipment basically consume the funds. However, he is also working hard to increase his daily funding to 100,000 yuan. But there is also a downside to this. Chengda's resources may not last long. Because increasing mining vehicles means faster consumption. Under Jiang Fan's violent army, another reinforced infantry battalion and a heavy artillery battalion have been added in the past 2 days. In the establishment, strengthen the infantry battalion's jurisdiction of 3 infantry companies, 1 artillery company, 1 firepower support company, 1 tank company, and 1 logistics support company. The total strength is about 1,000 people. The Heavy Artillery Battalion has 3 artillery companies, 1 transportation company, and 1 logistics support company under its jurisdiction. Each of the 3 artillery companies is equipped with 6 FH.18 32 caliber 150 mm howitzers, totaling 18. This FH.18 150 mm howitzer. The total weight is 6.3 tons, with a firing rate of 4 rounds per minute and a maximum range of 15 kilometers. Among the same level of howitzers, this heavy artillery is also considered a top-notch presence. 2 reinforced battalions, 1 heavy artillery battalion, and 1 anti-aircraft artillery battalion, with a total force of about 3,000 people. This is all of Jiang Fan's current military strength. Xie Ning, what are your thoughts on the Little Devils in the direction of Pinquan? Xie Ning looked at the map of Qingda with a furrowed brow. I don't know what kind of effect the commander wants to achieve. Faced with Xie Ning's rhetorical question, Jiang Fan smiled openly. Of course it's a complete annihilation. It's not that he looks down on the Little Devils. Indeed, the Little Devils have high individual qualities and strong combat effectiveness. But their equipment is at an absolute disadvantage, which is an undeniable fact. When the military strength is similar. Jiang Fan felt that it was not difficult to completely annihilate this Japanese army. Xie Ning nodded and said, continue to set up the position in Erdaegu, and you only need to deploy 1 battalion of troops to defend it. Consume the Japanese army's living strength with the advantage of defense. When the consumption reaches a certain level, give up the second ditch and evacuate Qingda for defense. After introducing the Little Devils, close the door and beat the dogs, using the advantage of armor to eliminate the enemy. Jiang Fan nodded in satisfaction with his plan. Okay, let's do as you said. We need to completely annihilate the Little Devils in this brigade, and our current military strength is still a bit difficult. It seems that further enhancement is needed to create another trump card. At this moment, Jiang Fan also had new ideas in his heart. The Erdaegu position has become busy again. The engineering units are extensively excavating, reinforcing their positions, laying barbed wire, and once again adding many firepower points. A strong position is constantly being improved. The Japanese army in the direction of Pinquan is also rapidly approaching. However, the Japanese army did not advance smoothly along the way as they mixed into the 14th Brigade. Xie Ning repeated his old trick and dispatched multiple small troops to attack the Japanese army, slowing down their forward speed. Although we didn't have much time to fight for, we still have about a day. 2 days passed again, and the main force of the Japanese mixed 14th Brigade finally arrived at Erdaegu. Looking at the group of positions ahead, Jiro Hattori gave a cold smile. Let the Imperial warriors destroy their positions and take Qingda. The Japanese army did not stop and immediately organized troops to launch a fierce attack. A major battle unfolds again in Erdaegu. However, this time they were facing a force of over 5,000 Japanese soldiers from the 14th Brigade. If placed on the battlefield within the pass, it would be difficult to defend without more than 30,000 troops.